This is the Nothing Phone 2A, and I'm sure in the weeks, if not months leading up to this launch, you've been seeing a whole lot of hype surrounding this phone. Now that's been Nothing's MO, right? And hype isn't necessarily a bad thing. Guys, to me, Nothing's phones have typically been head turners. They've got that unique build, the LED pizzazz to the back, with good but not necessarily great hardware, excellent clean software though, anemic box contents, offering a slightly below average value, below average bang for your buck. So does the Nothing Phone 2A continue on with the same legacy? What's to like and dislike about this phone? My name's Ash, you're watching C4E Tech, and I've been using this phone, the Nothing Phone 2A, as my primary for about 10 days now. And in today's video, let me share my thoughts with you. Roll the new intro. The build, the design, it's always been one of Nothing's trends, and they've continued with a very similar design language here too. The Nothing Phone 2A has a very flat, boxy feel to it in hand, which if you know me, you know I'm not really a fan of. But it feels surprisingly easy to hold given the bezels, they've been kept narrow and the edges aren't sharp either. They don't dig into the palm of your hand when you hold it and use the phone 2A for long periods of time. The back, it's typically nothing. The transparency, the patterns, the glyph LEDs, like I said, a very typical Nothing design. Like the phone 1 and the phone 2, the 2A, it also retains a similar look. And I guess that means this would continue being a conversation starter. What this phone doesn't retain given its reduced price tag are the materials used. Instead of metal and glass that we got with the other phones, here we get plastic. Plastic to the back, plastic to the sides. So there's an increased risk of picking up scratches. Remember, there is no case in the box, so if you are buying this phone, make sure you order a case with it. Now look at these cameras. They do protrude out quite a bit. But given that they are centered, there is no wobble when you put the phone 2A down on a surface and use it. And the sides, they have a nice matte finish. Guys, obviously I'd prefer metal, but if a brand's gonna do plastic, I really prefer this kind of matte plastic to the glossy stuff we find on many other mid-rangers. Now, a side effect of using plastic is a very reasonable 190 gram weight. And that's despite a 5000 mAh battery on the inside. The first time Nothing's offering that. Now, the battery life on this phone has been excellent. Even with heavy use, never once did I kill the battery midday. And with moderate use, I ended up with about 30-40% left in the tank by the end of my day. Now, there is no wireless charging, and there is no wired charger in the box either, but this phone also supports 45 watt wired charging with the claim being 0 to 100 in about an hour. The improved battery life compared to say the Nothing Phone 1, it's not just because of the slightly higher capacity battery, it's also due to the improved efficiency of the chip on the inside. In another first for Nothing, they've gone with MediaTek's 4nm Dimensity 7200 Pro SoC, which they've co-developed with MediaTek, which is marketing speak for we slightly tinkered with an existing SoC. But it's all good. The 7200 Pro looks like a solid performer. It's paired with 128 or 256 gigs of storage, 8 or 12 gigs of RAM, with up to 8 gigs of virtual RAM that you can add with RAM booster. Now on paper, the phone 2A, it's an upgrade from the phone 1 spec-wise. And yes, in some ways, it sure is. Now if you look at the graphics performance, the phone 2A, it gets a substantial boost. And by the way, it ran pretty cool with no throttling. Now, when we look at the CPU stuff, that's when you see the single core performance. Well, yeah, we're getting more or less the same performance, but multi-core scores, they're noticeably lower. The RAM storage technology too, it's a downgrade. So there is some obvious cost cutting. Yes, I do understand we are comparing apples to oranges here, different segments of phones, and it should be obvious that a cheaper phone has cheaper parts, but these are things that are not explicitly mentioned anywhere, so I just thought I'd let you know. Anyways, flipping back to the positives, software. You know how Nothing has a very unique design? As in, by just looking at the back, it's super easy to pick a Nothing device in a crowd. Now that is impressive, yes, but to me, even more impressive is the fact that they've done the same for software. And they've done it, implemented their own signature look while keeping the UI clean and minimal. I think that's very cool. Also cool is the fact that Nothing's got zero bloat on this phone, no pre-installed apps. The software here is Nothing OS 2.5 built atop Android 14, and they've left a lot of things stock. The main changes they've made are with the fonts, animations, the widgets of course, the multi-page ones, they're pretty to look at while also being quite functional. And then there's the glyph stuff. Well, there are fewer LED segments to the back here. You can still do most things you've been seeing on other Nothing phones. You can use Glyph Composer to set up unique glyph patterns per contact so that you can identify who's calling without actually looking at the screen. You can have the glyphs indicate the volume levels, you can use it as a timer or to indicate Uber arrival time. It's all there. In other words, nothing hasn't done anything new here to convert people who look at glyph LEDs as just a gimmick. There's nothing new here to convert them into fans. And at the same time, they've done just enough to ensure existing glyph fans don't feel let down. So from a software perspective, the Nothing Phone 2A, it felt fluid and snappy for the most part. It's also nice that Nothing offers 3 years of Android version updates alongside 4 years of security patches for this one. Anyways, in my time with the Phone 2A, I rarely noticed any lags or slowdown, except one instance that I will talk about in just a bit. But before we get to that, let's quickly talk about the display. Here, Nothing's gone for a 6.7-inch AMOLED panel with a Full HD Plus resolution and a 120Hz refresh. Now, there is no LTPO support, but Nothing claims the panel can intelligently drop to say 30 Hz when playing back video. The HDR brightness peak is rated at 1300 nits, and for regular use, in my testing, it outputs around 800 nits under manual mode and 1150, that's 50 nits higher than what they claim, under auto. So it's a solid display overall, and the stereo speakers also sounded quite good. Here, have a listen. Alright, let's now talk optics. There's a dual camera setup to the back. Here we have a pair of 50 megapixel shooters. The primary, it's Samsung's GN9 sensor that's paired with an f1.88 lens that's optically stabilized. Now when you compare images side by side with the Nothing Phone 1, the first thing that strikes you is the way the colors are processed. There's a bit more saturation, a bit more punch in the images. The details are also slightly better. I like it. Now the difference, it's a lot more noticeable when you compare these shots under low light. Now here, the Phone 2A manages to consistently shoot brighter images without adding any extra noise. See the shadow here? It's not like the Phone 2A is making night into day, but it's definitely got a little more detail. Now moving on, the secondary, this is again a Samsung sensor, the JN1, 50 megapixels. It's paired with a f2.2 ultra-wide lens. This gives it a 114 degree field of view. Now with the ultra-wides, even under good light, you can easily see the better performance. Take this shot for example. See how the detail in the shadows, they're pretty much the same. But then look at the car door. You can see the Phone 1, it's totally blown out the highlights. Whereas the Phone 2A, you can actually see more detail there. Now for videos, we can shoot it up to 4K 30 and the footage seemed fine. That is, unless you're doing something else while shooting. Now this is what I ended up with when I was on a call while shooting the sample footage. As you can see, there's a lot of frame skipping going on. Now thankfully, this doesn't seem to be a chip limitation, just buggy software. Since multitasking, for example using the Phone 2A with a YouTube video playing in a floating window or using multi-window, these kind of use cases did not trigger any slowdowns. I found that the Phone 2A was still perfectly usable while multitasking. So I think this is just a bug that needs to be ironed out and hopefully Nothing does that soon. Anyways, for selfies, you can shoot it up to 1080-60 with the same 32 megapixel selfie camera that we got on the Phone 2. And the stills, they turned out quite decent, detailed with accurate skin tones and no weird skin smoothing. Now guys, in many ways, the Phone 2A, it feels like a successor to the Phone 1. It's got a lot of things that we liked about the Phone 1. For example, the clean, no bloat interface with the 3+4 update promise, the unique design, an IP54 rating, and it even does better in some areas like with the GPU, the optics, battery life, etc. Now yes, there has been some corner cutting, most obviously with the use of plastic, the reduced LED zones, the RAM storage technology, the multi-core performance, the lack of wireless charging, etc. But the 24,000 rupee price tag makes these easy to overlook. So to me, the Phone 2A seems like a solid offering from Nothing. While it does have its limitations, if you're in the market for a not too expensive phone for daily use, one with a clean Android experience that also happens to look unique, the Phone 2A, it seems to check all the right boxes. And that's my take. If you've made it this far into the video, please consider dropping it a like, subscribing, leaving a comment. Guys, I put a lot of work into these videos and any interaction from you helps the video get suggested by the algorithm to more people. So if you can, drop a like, whatever you can do. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.